There are rappers who create characters, there are rappers who exaggerate stories, and then there are rappers who make people stop and ask a completely different question. Wait, did he actually do that? For decades, rap has operated on an unspoken understanding. Artists say things, sometimes they tell the truth, sometimes they stretch reality, sometimes they create stories bigger than themselves. Nobody was interrogating musicians like detectives. Nobody heard a song and immediately started building timelines. Nobody asked whether every lyric was evidence. But drill changed something. In drill music, reputation became currency. The more believable you were, the more people listened. The more dangerous you looked, the more attention you attracted. And somewhere along the line, people stopped asking, is the music good? And started asking, is this real? That's where Bloodhound Lil Jeff entered the conversation. Because when people talked about him, they weren't just talking about songs, they were talking about rumors, they were talking about street reputation, they were talking about interviews, live streams, stories, allegations, and eventually a number that spread across the internet like wildfire. 11 bodies. Now, whether every claim attached to his name was true, exaggerated, misunderstood, or internet mythology is still debated heavily by people following Chicago drill culture. But one thing wasn't debated. People believed him. And once enough people believe something, reputation starts becoming bigger than the person themselves. Before the interviews, before the internet theories, before people started dissecting lyrics line by line, Jeffrey Harris was just another kid from Chicago trying to figure out what his future looked like. And unlike what many people assume, rap wasn't the first dream. Basketball was. At one point, he spoke openly about where things started changing.
I was 16. I was trying to play basketball, but that's around the time I ain't make the varsity team. So at 16 was when I was realizing this shit real. I don't know what the I'm gonna do. Cause after that point, it's like once you don't make that team, it's over.
And for a lot of people, that might sound like a normal moment. A teenager missing a team, a teenager changing direction. But sometimes, the moments that look small end up changing everything that comes after. Because once one door closed, another one was already waiting. That other door wasn't music. Not yet. It was the streets. Raised by a single mother in Chicago, Jeffrey Harris didn't exactly grow up separated from that environment. Reports and discussions around his background often pointed to gang influence around him from an early age, and according to stories surrounding his family, even his father allegedly had ties connected to Chicago street culture. Long before rap interviews and online attention, violence had already brushed against his life. In fact, according to accounts surrounding his upbringing, Jeff was almost caught in a shooting at around 14 years old after his home was allegedly targeted because of issues connected to his older brother. For most people, moments like that create distance. You survive something and decide, I never want to be around this again. But life doesn't always move in straight lines, because while Jeff's basketball dream was fading away, another identity was beginning to form. Eventually, he became associated with Bloodhound, a crew tied to Chicago's drill landscape and connected through a network of alliances and rivalries already active in the streets. And once he stepped into that world, people around him started noticing something. Jeff wasn't treating it like a phase. He wasn't acting like somebody trying something out for a few months. He moved with intensity. The same energy he once put into basketball looked like it was getting redirected somewhere else entirely. From his early days around Bloodhound, videos and clips already showed a young Jeff flashing weapons, speaking recklessly, and projecting an image that made it clear he wasn't trying to appear harmless. The words themselves weren't even the biggest thing. It was the mindset behind them. Because even early on, there seemed to be almost no hesitation. And that's important because in drill culture, image matters a lot. People talk, people exaggerate, people create personas, but every now and then, somebody appears who seems determined to convince everyone that what they're saying isn't an act. Jeff started becoming known as somebody who wasn't interested in appearing careful. There were moments online where he seemed willing to put everything on display, almost as if consequences weren't even entering the conversation. And for outsiders looking in, it could seem confusing, because from the outside, it raises a question. Why risk everything? Why move like that when prison, retaliation, or worse are obvious possibilities? But people who grew up around these environments often describe something different. When reputation becomes survival, being feared can start feeling like protection. Being known can start feeling like power. And for Jeff, things were about to get even more personal. Because eventually, this stopped becoming about image. It stopped becoming about appearing dangerous. A close person in his circle would end up losing his life. And according to accounts surrounding the situation, that moment changed everything. Because from that point forward, people around him started believing they were watching someone become something entirely different. Amid ongoing tension surrounding the conflict, the killing of his close confidant Z Money was believed to have shattered a long-standing understanding between Bloodhound and Trap City, escalating tensions and opening the door to an all-out war. And for Jeff, people watching from the outside started saying this wasn't just another street conflict anymore. This looked personal. Around this period, clips and live stream moments started surfacing where Jeff spoke in ways that immediately grabbed attention online. One of the most discussed moments was when he jokingly introduced what he called a killing school.
I'm taking the killing school. Class start next week. You gotta at least have 2 bodies though. For I ain't coming with no. If you ain't got shit, I can't work with no beginners for. You gotta at least have a 2. I'm gonna give y'all 2 minimum. I'm gonna start at 2 minimum because y'all know why I'm gonna start at 2 minimum. Now I'm just doing it for a tradition. I'm gonna start at 2 minimum, man. 2, you gotta have a minimum of 2. No, anything, you gotta have 2. You gotta have a minimum of 2 of them bitches to come to school. You just gonna sit your dumb ass in this seat and whatever I say, do it. If you do anything scary, bitch, I'm smoking.
To some people, it looked like dark humor. To others, it looked reckless. And to a completely different group of people online, it sounded like something else. Because by now, viewers weren't hearing Jeff the same way anymore. Remember the question people had started asking, is this real? That question was following him everywhere. Every clip, every lyric, every interview, every live stream. And once people begin looking at someone through that lens, everything starts changing. A line stops sounding like a lyric, a joke stops sounding like a joke, and every sentence suddenly feels like evidence. Then the internet started attaching a number to his name, 10 bodies, then 11 bodies. Whether those claims were accurate became heavily debated. Even people deep inside Chicago drill discussions disagreed over who was actually connected to what. Shortly afterward, a killing connected to one of his rivals would become one of the most heavily discussed moments attached to his name. And after that, people stopped whispering. Now everybody was paying attention. One of the most heavily discussed events connected to his name centered around the death of a rival known as Lil from Trap City in June of 2023. According to reports surrounding the case, Lil had gotten into a vehicle in Chicago before gunfire erupted, leaving him fatally wounded. In the aftermath, the driver, Robert Smith, described the chaos of those moments.
Smith says he hit the gas when someone standing outside of the car started shooting. He rushed going to the hospital where he was pronounced dead.
I was running stop signs in intersections to get away. So at one intersection I had to stop because there was a car coming through, and then I turned to him and said, "Hey, I'm going to take you to the hospital." And he said, "Okay." Then the next time I stopped, I had to stop at a light because there was 2 cars coming through the intersection, so I couldn't run it immediately. And I looked back then, and he wasn't moving anymore.
For most people hearing a story like that, it was disturbing enough on its own. But what happened afterward is what sent conversations online into overdrive. Because shortly after the incident, Jeff reportedly jumped online and said,
"Go ask my ops that Marco Drake put shit in park. Go ask my ops that Marco Drake, his ass ain't making fuck. Go ask my ops that Marco Drake, his ass ain't get out that car. You know that? I was right there, you know that."